Welcome to the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, your dedicated parental alienation coach, here to guide and support families as they navigate the challenges of high conflict divorces and custody battles. On this podcast, we'll share insights, practical strategies, and hope for those on the journey toward healing and justice. Whether you're personally experiencing these challenges or just want to learn more about the complexities of parental alienation and custody disputes, you're in the right place. You are not alone. This is the Fractured Families podcast, where every voice matters and every story is heard. And if you find my conversation helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us reach more families who need it. Hi, thanks for joining the Fractured Families podcast. I have with me today Greg, and he's going to tell us his story of alienation and how he's been separated and the false allegations, the lies, the court tactics, Child Protective Services, how that has impacted his relationship with his children. George, thank you for joining the Fractured Families podcast. Why don't you get us started and tell us what's going on?
Well, great. Nice to meet you, and thanks for inviting me on. I know my story is a little complex. It's kind of hard to follow the timeline because this has been going on since 2020. I got divorced in 2019. I came home from work and everything was gone. Furniture was gone, everything but a living room and one bedroom set. Everything else was gone. I called my ex and no answer, no replies. She wouldn't let me know where the children were. She wouldn't let me know anything. So from the very first day, they were taken and started to being kept from me. And the parental alienation I could see in the start and then through the finish has just been a gross misuse of the judicial system by my ex-wife. Years of false allegations, years of abuse against me, financial abuse, emotional abuse, has been very damaging to me, especially with the false allegations perpetrated by my ex-wife, have basically left me bankrupt and exhausted. What is impressive to me, and that I hear from everyone else, is that I've not given up on my two girls. They were 11 and 14 at the time, and now they are, one will be 17 next month, and the other is 19 in college, and I will never give up on my girl. Despite every roadblock that she has thrown at me, it was never about winning to me. It was always about wanting to move mountains to try to have a relationship with my girls, to be their father. We had a loving relationship. They were my angels. It was, I worked from 9 to 7. So when I was home, it was in daddy's lap watching TV. And then when they would get older, it was playing games and going out and watching movies and doing everything that we can. And I just know that starting in 2020, April. No, I take that. Let's go back just a little bit. In 2019, due to court order, it was my Christmas holiday. She asked me to switch the holiday, and it was the first holiday of the year, so I didn't want to switch it. So the kids came over, normal visit. I had them 4 days on. She had them 5. Then it was swapped, vice versa. 2 days later, I got a phone call from my divorce attorney stating that the detectives wanted to speak to me about choking my child, throwing her into the hallway, and abusing her physically. So immediately I went down to the police station and asked, what's been going on? And that's when they told me that there had been an allegation made against me for physical abuse, and they wanted my story. And I had no story. I had no idea what they were talking about. I do remember an incident happening where the sisters were fighting that day, and maybe I pulled them apart and told one to go to their bedroom, but that was about it. But I ended up getting arrested over it. I got OR the same day and had to hire an attorney for that. Then when we went to our first plea and arraignment, she was not there. So the main goal of it was through the prosecutors, she wanted a restraining order starting the week before Christmas, and it would be 14 days before I could be heard, and that would be after the Christmas holiday. So she was going to get that holiday. Well, since she was not in court, he did not grant that. He only granted a temporary restraining order against her. So a few months went by, the court date came, we went to court, she never showed up again. The prosecutor stated he sent over 6 subpoenas, all certified mail, and asked for a continuance. So this whole time, I was still seeing the girls, but I was having to go through this was the start of the court and using the court system to manipulate the court order for visitation. So 2 months later was the final hearing, and when we went, she never showed up again. So those charges were no prost. They apologized to me and left. From that day going forward, I thought everything was going amazing. I got them a new dog for this house because they took their own dog with their mother. We were having a great life. In April of 2020, I had 2 detectives show up at my house. I had no idea what was going on. They handed me a search warrant and said that there's been allegations that I have cameras in every vent in my home, including the bathrooms and the girls' bedrooms, that I had 2 or 3 laptops, 2 or 3 computers, and a bunch of hard drives. The whole time I was married for 15 years, got married in 2005. Through the time of divorce, we never owned a computer. I had a laptop that I'd bring home occasionally for work. So of course I was shocked and didn't know what to do. So they came in and searched the entire house. They found 2 cameras. There's one in my living room that is monitored by a security company known as ADT. And then there was one in the kitchen. That was the only cameras in the house. They took apart everything. They searched the entire house for cameras and computers and hard drives and found nothing. So when they were leaving, the only thing that they asked for was my telephone. Gave them my telephone and called my attorney, told him what was going on. And they said that they would have it for, they might have it for a couple weeks. And I couldn't have that. I mean, that was my phone to contact my girls, to contact,
Yep.
work with. So I, against legal advice, knowing I did nothing wrong, signed a piece of paper saying that they could go into my phone without a warrant. So I let them do that, let them go into it, and they gave it back within, I think, 10, 11 hours. The detective called me about a week later, apologized for everything that's happened, said that nothing was found and all allegations were proven to be false. So that was dropped. But that exact day, she went and filed a temporary restraining order in the county that we live in. So had to hire another attorney because I had never been in the situation of court, never been in the situation of ever being in trouble other than a speeding ticket. But so I had to come up with money for that. So we go to that hearing and the judge finds that everything was false. The actual officer showed up to that court to testify, and he demanded her to give me the children back at 9 a.m. the next morning. Next morning, I go to pick them up at our designated spot. She's not there. And this is in a different county, about 30 to 45 minutes away. So I drove up there to pick them up and called her, no answer, no answer. And after an hour of waiting, I went inside and asked what was going on. And at that time, I was served another temporary restraining order. She went to that county, I think it was 5, if not 5.5 hours after leaving the courthouse, that denied the restraining order to file another one because we were in process of getting a parenting schedule, a visitation schedule. Well, every time a TRO would hit, it automatically ended my visitation. She automatically got 100% rights. And this was, right after COVID. So it wasn't a couple weeks to get into court. It was 2 to 3 months. So I went to that court date. They found the allegations there to be untrue and spoke with the children. And that's when the children started really saying things that I'd never heard them say. That they were fearful, that they didn't feel safe. And in previous recordings that I have documentation of now through the legal process, every interview that they went to, they told them, yeah, I feel safe at both houses. I want to spend time with my mom and dad. And then here we are almost a year later, and it's starting to change little by little. So I wasn't really aware of it. So after that court date, I was given supervised visits because she had also filed DHS claims against me for other allegations, and 4 of them came back unfounded and 1 of them came back true finding. Well, in Arkansas, I appealed it. So I had to go to a magistrate judge, and that was 11 months it took to get in the magistrate judge to get this seen. Through all her tricks and going from one court to another, she did everything she could to remove me from their life and keep them under her roof to where she could do whatever she tell them. They would have to do whatever they could say. But the only thing I did still have was phone calls on Sundays. And every phone call that was a FaceTime video, she would be in the background. So I wouldn't be able to get any conversations in because they seemed very scared or reluctant to talk. They were short on some answers, and if they would say, I miss Gigi, which is their grandmother, or I miss my nieces and nephews, the phone call would instantly end. So I'd asked her why that happened, and she said, I pay the phone bill, so unless you get them a phone, no more conversations are going to happen. So I ended up having to hire another attorney, more and more money every single time, to go through a DHS hearing. At that time, she had hired an attorney, and 2 weeks before the case, she had let her attorney go, got another attorney to ask for a continuance, which moved it all the way to 2023, end of 22 or the beginning of 23. So here we were going on 3 years of me having no visitation, no communication at all, no phone calls, because DHS and the attorney at Lynham had put a halt on all visitations until that was taken care of. Well, after the end of the court date with the magistrate judge at DHS, she is the one that stated, this is unfounded. I don't see why we're even here. This is pure alienation of affection and parental alienation and using the children as a weapon in a custody case. And that was really the first time that I had someone say alienation that actually meant something. Every other person I talked to said it's so hard to prove. In a court of law in Arkansas, it's hard to say. It's hard to get someone to prove it. Well, the judge admitted to it. So my visitation was supposed to go in effect immediately following that. No visitation started. The attorney at Lynham filed for a motion to compel to see the reunification counselor, and that started up. After about 4 visits of me alone and Blair alone, towards the end of that year, we got together. We were having visitations together. I would say after the 4th or 5th visit, it was starting to get so much better. But she was a totally different girl than I knew. The last time I saw her, she was 11. Now she's 15, about to be 16. She's a teenager now. So it was like meeting a stranger, and it was my own child. So that was going good. Then the Lynham wanted to start visitations, so she would take her time out to take us to dinner once a month. And for 3 months, that was going great. At the end, next thing you know, no counseling. She wouldn't show up for counseling. She wouldn't answer the Lynham because I guess she noticed everything was working. So she stopped that. So for 4 more months, I was battling with trying to find another loan, as I was already $36,000 in credit card debt. And the only thing other I could do was refinance my home, because I wasn't going to stop fighting for my girls. I just wasn't going to do it. Well, the Lynham filed contempt against her for not going to the motion to compel. About a week after that, she hired an attorney and filed a motion to replace therapist. So took from April to file, and we did not go to court until October of last year. So another 11 months from January through the end of October the 3rd, no visitation, not even at a counselor's office, not even over the phone or with the Lynham. And then I find out she filed another restraining order in Pulaski County. This time she said that when I hugged my daughter when she was leaving, she saw my hand graze over her chest. So she filed sexual battery with DHS and also tried to get a temporary restraining order. In the meantime, then I had to get another attorney. We went, asked for an expedited hearing, or in 14 days. He said it is unfounded, and you are to really give the kid over to him tomorrow afternoon after school at 6 p.m. I show up at 6 p.m. She's waiting there with another sheriff in another county who hand me another TRO. So after leaving that court again, she went to another court in another county with totally different allegations. So as I was scheduling to go to that, the other case was put on hold. Well, luckily, when that judge actually saw the case come across his docket, he said he wasn't going to do it anymore. He wasn't, I don't know his exact words, but it was kind of like a kid wanting candy going to mom and mom saying no and dad saying yes, that she was using the courts to shop around to find whoever she could to stop it. So he sent it back to Pulaski County, which is the county we live in, and they immediately dismissed it. So we were on for trial. And at this time, I was so burnt. I was so burnt out. The legal system seemed like it wasn't there for me because I had no idea that, if I'm scheduled a court date, all it takes is for her to change an attorney to get a continuance, file a DHS claim to get a continuance until that's looked into. Once that one's looked into, she would file another one. So it took from April of 2020 is when the case was reopened to August of last year or October of last year to actually get my day in court. I had to represent myself pro se because there was no way I could afford an attorney again to go through the last 4 years worth of records plus a 4-hour trial. She was found in contempt. At the end of the hearing, I was granted supervised visitations. Well, she didn't want any one of my family to be the supervisor, so now it goes through a local company that sends out a supervisor who is actually a licensed therapist who supervises. But why did I need a supervisor? It's been 5 years and I never saw my kids. And now I'm having to see them with a babysitter. It's all because of the allegations that were put out there over and over and over again. And then when I asked the court system, at that time I was told that it was to protect me because every time I would see the kids, there would be something filed immediately. I felt like I was at the end of the road because the system that was there to protect me, I thought it was letting me down because it was just kicking the can down the road 6 months, 4 months, 11 months, 6 months, and it never stopped. It was all of her tricks and narcissistic behaviors to do whatever she could to keep the kids away from me. Well, last year my daughter turned 18. I finally called her. She has nothing at all that she wants to do with me. I have no contact with her now. She's now 19, and I text her on her birthday. I text her on a weekly basis, and nothing, no replies. The supervised visits with my daughter, we mainly go see a movie. Everything is short. How are you doing? Okay. One or two word answers. She sits on the other side of the supervisor during the movie. She stays on her phone. There's no communication, and it's just so devastating. But at the same time, it means the world to even be in the room with my daughter. I mean, I haven't been in the room with her for so long. Well, come January of this year, a motion was filed by my ex to suspend the visitation. Once again, she was trying to get everything stopped. So we had a 9-hour court hearing on November the 3rd. She brought in a counselor that doesn't believe in parental alienation, says that it's not recognized in some DM5 or some psychology. Yeah, since it's not recognized, they can't go off of that, and that it would be detrimental to her health if she was to see me because she was being forced to see me. The judge said he wanted to take everything under advisement and made his ruling on the 1st of May. And he still gave me my visitation. He did not take it away, but it's still supervised. It's only 2 to 4 hours, depending on how long a movie is and if we want to go eat, but we've never been able to go eat because she refuses to do so. She doesn't want to speak to my grandmother. My nieces and nephews, they grew up together with my kids, and they have no communication. We lived with my mother for 5 years, and they were closer to her than probably me. And they don't talk to her anymore either. She'll wish them happy birthday, Merry Christmas, no replies. So I have hope that this is the last time, but I don't think it is. I mean, this has happened. The restraining order from one county to another has happened 3 times, and when both courts drop it, then she files DHS. So at this point, I'm turning my energy into awareness and advocacy to get it out there to where it is a known thing because it's huge. I mean, the form of abuse, it is not just on me. Take me out of the situation. I'm grown. I can work with it. But what it's doing to a child, because a child, no matter what, they earn for their parents. They want their parents. You hear all the time about kids that are abused and they'll still go sit in that abuser's lap. I mean, that's just, they want their family in their life, and she has done everything that she can to keep them out of my life. And It is my motivation now to get something changed to where it is notified or it is documented as a real syndrome and that it can be used in courts. I know it isn't used in some courts across the states, but in Arkansas, it's not. So I've been speaking to some people at the lawmakers and they're looking into it. I have some meetings with them. I've started a group for other parents that are alienated in Arkansas, in central Arkansas, that I would say 90% of them that I talk to want to tell their story, but they say that they're so scared to say anything about it because of the allegations, because it's hard to talk about. You know, I've been to 4 or 5 counselors ordered by the court, and every time I go over it, it's like ripping that open again. It's bringing all that trauma back into my life. And I have 2 children out there that are alive, but I grieve every night as they're not because I have no contact since 2020 in April, other than starting in August of last year, a 2 to 4 hour visit. And most of them are 2.5, depending on how long the movie is. And within 3 months, she tried to take that away. So I have 1 more year with my daughter until she turns 18. She turns 17 in 2 months. And luckily I got a judge that, because the first court-appointed counselor came in and spoke highly on parental alienation, but due to accusations from my ex-wife trying to go after her, making reports to bar on her, because she was seeing progress, she had to let us go. She said she hated to do it because of all the great things that have happened, but she had to let us go. So now we're on another one. So it's just getting it out there, getting the notification out there, and fighting as hard as possible to where if one family can be saved by this, you know, doing what you're doing is amazing. But it all started with physical abuse, then it went to sexual allegations, then it went to molestation. I mean, so it went from a small allegation to life in prison if any of it was found to be true. And every single time it was investigated by the police and unfounded. But that's something that's got to stop. I mean, being able to go from one court to another, and then when they say no, that you go file something with DHS. And it, like I said, it put my case on hold from 2021 all the way till we just had our final hearing in 2024 in October. And then the actual final closed hearing was in April of 2025. We've had 2 other closed hearings, but they never closed because something else was another allegation would always pop up. Allegations that I couldn't have done, because I haven't even been around the children. So there was no way I was even able to do them. But she knew it would draw it out, that the system would have to hear that before they could go to that. So that's my story. I could probably go on for days, you know, with other stuff, but those are the main points. And living as a father that had 2 girls that still to this day are the light of my life, but knowing they're out there and I can't see them and I can't be with them and I can't actually have that fatherly time with them, it is a pain that's going to last a lifetime, not only on me, but on the children. The children are the ones here that are really getting hurt. I'm trying to focus everything I can because I've done everything I possibly can in the court system. So now I'm going to give all my effort for awareness and advocacy and try to help other parents that are going through the same thing, because I can't change what the courts do. It's been going on since 2020, but I can still fight in my kid's name and honor to try to make a change and to try to get something changed where this doesn't happen, or if it does happen, something happens to those people.
That's really devastating. Your story is so devastating. You're right. It's the child was the victim, but the alienating parent, that's not their priority. They don't even care about that. So with that being said, I want to ask you some questions. What was her personality like during the marriage? Did you recognize at any point that she would behave, maybe not keep your children from you, but was there anything in the marriage now in retrospect that you think, man, wow, I missed that?
Yeah, there was physical abuse that was happening to me, but I would always say it was my fault. I would always take the blame for it. And I really didn't know how bad it got until the 3rd time when I went to the hospital. I actually had a social worker come in and talk to me and said, "Hey, this is the 3rd time you've come in with a stab wound, and 1 time was poison. And every time you say it's a weed eater or you were cutting up onions, or you were spraying carpet. Is anything going on at home? And all I did was want to protect her. I didn't want the kids to think anything negative of her. I didn't want anyone to think anything negative of her. So I was being, manipulated for a while. And then the last 6 months is when I could say, looking back on it now, I could see her pulling the kids away then. Instead of us all watching a movie, she would go to the room with just them. Or instead of us all going out to eat and I'd be on my way home from work, they would already be gone. They're eating, they're going to watch a movie, just them, cutting me out already. And at the time, I was just thinking, dang, I'm working too much. But looking back, people have to realize it starts before the divorce. I mean, it starts way before, but you just don't realize it because it's not known. Not many people know about it. When you talk to people about it, they're like, wow, that makes sense. But this should
Yeah.
be something that is well known because, as the court said, the judge said he went to a class and he said, that there's really high chances of them turning into drug addicts, looking for affection from older men, and a couple other things that he said. And when he said it, he looked at her and said, "It's your fault." So, but that can't be changed. I mean, it's already been done.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I saw the signs now that looking back on it, but then no, I didn't see it.
And your relationship with the girls, obviously it was a good relationship. And what role did you play as the parent in the intact household? I mean, what did she allow you to, that's the question. What did she allow you to do as a parent?
Well, most of the time, she was a stay-at-home mother, so she
Okay.
made sure that she was the one picking them up from school. She was the one going to all their stuff, but I would get off work, I'd go to their Valentine dances, volunteered as a program called Dads at their school. I would go to one of my youngest was in gymnastics. I'd never missed a practice. I never missed an event. I was there as much as possible because it was the joy that's the part of the parent that you get to live and you get to see your children grow and have fun. And but I wasn't the one here 24/7 when they were sick or to pick them up from school and take them to get ice cream. Now, when I could, I would, but I mean, I was the main person financing the household.
Yeah. So over the last 6 months, you started to see that she was creating a stronger divide between you and the kids. What was her reason for just picking up and leaving? Did she give you any reason why?
She did not give me a reason why, but I don't know. So I'm going to say allegedly. We were divorced in March and she was engaged April 11th. So that's all you have to say.
Basic math, yeah.
Yeah.
And so your oldest daughter, you've attempted to reach out to her. Does she still live at the household with her mother?
Yes, but she also lives on campus during school. The last time I heard from her, she asked me for a laptop. I was going to get her a laptop, but she wanted a $7,500 laptop. She didn't want a regular laptop. They don't know how much money I've spent on attorneys. They don't
Yeah.
know anything about the court system from me against their mother at all. I have not said one thing to them, and I'm not going to.
Right.
But I've made sure to keep every single document. I have a file cabinet that has 4 drawers and 2.5 of them are full. So when they're ready, they can read and they can see everything that happened. But I'm not going to degrade their mother at all. That's not what I'm going to do. That is the mother of my children. I chose her as the mother of my children. And I don't want them to look at her bad in any way, but it hurts. When I started talking to my 15-year-old, we started talking more than every Sunday. She wanted a car. I said, okay, I'll work on it. Then I got a TRO in the mail. So the money that I was going to use to buy her a car, I had to hire an attorney. So when I told her I couldn't buy her a car, phone call ceased. At this point, I would buy their love if I could, but it's going to take me 4 or 5 more years to pay off where I am now. Because like I said, I wasn't going to stop fighting for them. Even when they come out and said, stop, we don't want to be around you. I knew it wasn't them talking.
Right. Of course. It's what they're told, and they live in a home of fear, and they live in a household where if they don't align in their mind, they're going to be dismissed by her. And the reality of it is, and I can't say for sure in your case, but the reality is these alienating parents, they tell the children that you're not fighting for them. They tell the children that you've abandoned them. that you don't want them. And
I've been
then
told by my oldest when she was, I think, 15, when she
mhm,
asked for some money for a concert and I sent it to her and she said, "Is that all you're sending me? You haven't paid $1 in child support." I've never
right.
missed a child support payment, not one.
Because they always have to play the narrative of, I'm the victim. I had to tolerate all this abuse. I had to tolerate financial hardship because your father didn't contribute and I'm doing everything. They want to be the hero in the child's eyes. But on one hand, the child sees him as that hero because they only see one side. That's why they fight so hard to keep you away, Greg, is because if they knew the truth, then their facade would be, exploited. And they can't have that.
No, that's their protection. It's their
That's their
safe place
security
when it's
blanket.
really not.
Mhm,
And it took me so long to learn that. And
mhm.
I still have hope, um, through books and through your
Yeah,
podcasts,
thanks.
through YouTube videos. I mean, I've seen, 25, 30-year-olds that didn't see their parents for 20 years that would finally
Yeah.
reconnect. So I still have hope.
Mhm.
Once they get out and their brains totally mature and they sit back and they think about all the stuff that was said and they knew it wasn't true, I still have that hope and that spark will never stop. Feels like I'm pushing a boulder up a hill,
Mhm.
but I have an army behind me that's going to help me continue to push that boulder because I'm not going to stop. Those are my
Yeah.
babies, and I will not stop no matter how old they get.
And it's that consistent outreach. It's that consistent, I love you, I'm still here for you. As much as it hurts you to not get that, reciprocated, one day they're going to look back and say, he never stopped trying. And through everything, even through my harsh and hurtful words, he tried. And You know, the research shows that these children, when they become adults, there's a handful of variables that create that re-engagement of the targeted parent. And that is one, they reach a legal age. Two, they surround themselves with people who encourage that. Like, why did you reject your father? Like, what happened? What did he do? They get into a relationship themselves, and that new partner might say, have you ever thought about reconnecting with your father? Or they have their own family, right? And then they start to realize the bond and love of a father and a child or a mother and a child. And that's what triggers that, hey, I want to try again. I want to know the truth. So there is hope, Greg. There's definitely hope. And I know that I get a lot of people on my posts and my podcasts or comments that say, I've given up hope, I've walked away. But every parent has to do what's right for them in their case. You
Yeah.
can't say it's the same for everybody. I would never tell somebody you should not walk away. And I would never tell somebody you should fight. You have to do what feels right for you. And emotionally and mentally, you have to do what you're capable of doing. So with that, what are you doing for you?
I now see a therapist, and the thing that really hurt me was, I don't know if it's just me being stubborn and being a guy. I held it all in. I acted like nothing was wrong.
Yeah.
I went from 260 to 354. I gained a lot of weight. I was severely depressed where I put walls up to where I don't talk to anyone. I don't trust
Mhm.
anyone.
Yeah.
So for the past 6 months, I have been seeing a therapist who is amazing because I'm actually trying to better myself
Mm.
to be a better person to where when they do come back, did I probably make mistakes as a father? Of course, I probably made
Right.
mistakes, but I'm learning on those and learning how to cope with, because I'm not saying I never gave up. There was nights I laid in bed and did give up. I'm not going to fight this in the morning. It's not worth it.
Mhm.
Where am I going to come up with this money?
Mhm.
Because the system, until we get the system to change, I've heard, like I said, I'm 39 to 1,000 somewhere in there is what I totally spent. That's pennies compared to what some people spend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But what I did is I got on YouTube. I started taking courses on Pro Se,
Yeah.
and I went and did it myself because with the evidence that I had and all the contempts that she did, I didn't need an attorney. After 5 years of pure evil, I finally got my day in court, but it took 5 years to get there. And at the ages of my girls, I'm a boy. I've never been a girl. I'm a man. I've been told that that's their developmental ages.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Mhm.
And not having their father there and being told this and that, that's what they're going to believe. And I never let a day go by that I don't think about them. If they ask for space, like you're texting me too much, I'll take it back to once a month. But I always let them know I'm there for them. The thing that really hurt me was this year, my youngest daughter went to a Sadie Hawkins dance. She asked me for some money to do her nails. And I said, of course, honey, anything. The dance was over. I asked for pictures and she said, no, I'm not going to give you pictures because I know what you do with little girls.
Oh,
So the allegations that were so false that they don't know that were
of
found not true,
course.
because they're never allowed in the courtroom. My ex-wife has tried to get him on the stand every single court case, and he will not do it because he said, being under your roof,
Yeah.
nothing's going to be said different from what was said 5
Right.
years ago. So, but hearing that crushed me
Of
because
course.
that means she's telling them lies. Like, he hugged you and he ran his arm across
Yeah.
your breast. I'm 6'4". They're 4'5". Did it maybe glance it? Yeah. But like the magistrate judge from DHS said, is she was brainwashing, exact words, brainwashing normal fatherly affection into something way more that it wasn't, to alienate the children. And after I heard that word, that's when I really started looking into it.
Greg, thank you so much for joining the podcast and for sharing your story. It's heart-wrenching.
Yeah, it's they call it the highest of conflict. They have all their names for it, but
Yeah.
nothing will ever get that time back.
No.
And when they find her in contempt, I recommend no jail time. That's what I recommend every time. He's been sanctioned financially, but I'm fearing that if she was put in jail, anything that I've rebuilt with my 16-year-old would destroy it because she would say that dad put me in jail, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is that, but studies show that the only way to deprogram a child is to remove them from the alienating parent.
Yeah.
And as negative as it is for her to possibly be separated from her mother, the reality is in the long run, it's going to benefit her immensely.
Yeah, like this reunification therapy. That is, to me, it's a joke. We
Yeah.
can reunification for 1 hour, and then she goes right back home to that house
Yeah.
for 2 more
It's
weeks before I see
not
her
going to matter.
again.
Yeah. It's not going to
So we
matter.
might have something that goes good, but when she hits that car, she's going to say everything negative. It was the
Of
worst time of
course.
my life. I hated it. And then time goes by, and that's what the judge said. She has 1 more year, and he told me, Greg, there might not be ever a time that you have a relationship with your kids, but I'm going to make sure you have a chance, even if it's
He should
just
just
2
take her away
hours.
from her.
Oh,
It's just,
it should have been handled a long time ago.
yeah.
But now I'm still being punished
Yeah.
by only having 2 hour supervised visits. And there's a lot of deeper stuff.
Yeah.
But when you said looking back on it, the first day I had the kids, she was driving around and around my house. She called the police to do a welfare check the first night I had them. And then an hour after that, my daughter said she was going outside because her mom had left ice cream on the front porch. I mean, it was so, I've been sitting here thinking about looking back, and that's one thing
Yeah.
now that I realized it was starting then.
It started then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no time. Whatever time you're with your dad, I'm going to text you the whole time, or I'm going to be on the phone
Yeah.
with you.
I'm going to control that time. I will be immersed in your visit the whole time.
And she was. Their phones were dinging all night long.
Greg, thank you for joining the
Yeah.
Fractured Families podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Fractured Families podcast. I hope our conversation has provided you with support, understanding, and actionable insights to help you navigate your own family challenges. Remember, healing is a journey, and reaching out for help is a sign of strength. You're not alone in it. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more families in need. You can contact me on social media at Parental Alienation is Real and visit our website for additional resources and ways to get involved. Stay strong, stay connected, and keep fighting for the family bonds that matter most. Until next time, take care and stay resilient.